Hey guys, Stephanie with AmericanMuscle.com here with the Raxiom Vent Integrated Boost Gauge for 2015 and up S550 GT Mustangs. The Raxiom Vent Integrated Boost Gauge is going to be a good option for those guys out there that are in need of a boost gauge but that would love one with a very subtle appearance on the dash. This gauge has a digital display and it's a discrete gauge that works in the first dash vent closest to the driver. This is made to integrate right into the vent, and I will admit that it kind of looks awkward sitting here on the table like this, but once it's integrated, it sits in the bottom of the vent perfectly. You just flip open the vent and pop out the lower vent slat so you can see the gauge in the bottom half of the vent. So now you don't have to do any drilling or install any type of housing to get a gauge into your car. You also won't have any wires running in the interior since all of the wires will be contained behind the dash. This is just a really clean and unobtrusive way to get that vital boost info that you need from a forced induction car. So this gauge is also going to be perfect for you if you're really into the Raxiom multi-gauge but you just don't have the budget for it. This gauge will show you boost and vacuum with an integrated 45 PSI sensor, which will be enough even for you big baller guys out there that are planning on running a massive amount of boost. So this will show you the heart and guts of the info that you need to know, and a little plus, it's also going to show you battery voltage readings as well. The design of this gauge is really what's going to set it apart. You have this digital display gauge that's easily hidden and it doesn't need to be mounted anywhere externally in the interior, so it's not going to take away any of the style of the interior. There are normal gauge options out there and a handheld tuner can monitor boost for you as well, but even a handheld tuner would need to be mounted somewhere if you wanted to use it to monitor stats. This thing also has an auto dim or manual dim feature, so you can set it how you like it or let it dim itself. This is going to come with an auxiliary box with a sensor, some vacuum tubing, the wiring with wire taps and zip ties to keep things clean. Raxiom does offer a vacuum line extension that'll give you more line to work with if you happen to be worried about that. As for the appearance side of things, like I mentioned earlier, this gauge has a digital display with white numbers and blue bars, and this matches the S550 interior. Raxiom was all about integrating into the interior with this gauge and making it look natural in the interior, so of course it's gotta match. And speaking of that, what I've got with me here is obviously just the gauge itself, but Raxiom does offer the gauge pre-installed into a vent, which will save you the trouble of taking apart your vent yourself to get the gauge installed. These buttons here are going to direct the gauge functions, and at least when you're in running mode, tapping the left button will give you a peak recall and start a recording if you'd like to, and if you hold the left button down, you'll get a 15-second playback. The right button here will show you the current mode name and let you change the mode as well so you can see other data if you want to. Holding the right button will let you manually dim the gauge if you're not running the auto dim feature. When it comes to price, the gauge itself and the gauge pre-installed into the vent are obviously going to have a different price, but you're looking at a little under $250 for the gauge itself or about $50 more for the vent gauge combo. This does sound high for a gauge, but this gauge does read higher than any other boost gauge option that's currently available. The gauge doesn't need to be externally mounted, and it's hidden well and tucked away, and it matches the factory gauges in the car. So the install here is not difficult, but there is some disassembly and wiring that will need to be done. Overall though, you can expect a simple 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, and I'll give you a quick overview of the install so you can see how easy it is, but just know that if you decide on the gauge it's pre-installed into the vent, just know that some of these steps won't be necessary. The main dash panel will need to come off so you can get to the vent, and the vent comes out easily by releasing some clips that are holding it into place on the back side. You need to disassemble the vent some, so pull the trim ring and the slot bracket so you can pop out that lower vent slot since that's where the gauge will sit. Then the gauge installs and you reassemble it onto the vent bracket and into the vent barrel. There'll be a little hole to feed the cable through the back of the vent. After that, it's just a matter of reinstalling everything back into the dash and feeding the gauge wire behind the dash to the OBD2 port. Then it's time to run some wiring, and the directions are step by step, so they'll walk you through what you need to do. There's also the matter of the vacuum line that will need to be run to the engine bay so you can tap into a vacuum source, and that's obviously going to be an application-specific type of thing. At the end of the day, you're going to want all of the wiring lines secured with the zip ties and out of the way. Wrapping things up here, this boost gauge from Raxiom is a digital display gauge that integrates into the interior seamlessly and without having to add on to anything on the dash. It sits right in the first vent that's closest to the driver. There's a little bit of wiring and vacuum line running that's required, as with all boost gauges, but overall, this is an unobtrusive gauge that tucks away into the dash. As always, I suggest you guys check it out more online for yourself, and for all things Mustang, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.